In the 100th season of Maryland men's lacrosse, the Hardshells have been hard at work, putting together an impressive season ahead of this week's Big Ten tournament matchup. But it's been a roller coaster of a season that's included top-tier wins and a pair of unranked losses that have some wondering, can this Maryland team make it to Memorial Day weekend for the 5th time in the last 6 seasons? We'll dive into all of that and more with men's lacrosse on this edition of The Left Bench in Focus.
Welcome to the Left Bench in Focus, presented by Terrapin Sports Central. I'm Laura Shaughnessy, that's Ryan Martin, and Ryan, this Maryland men's lac squad has been on quite the tear this season.
Yeah, Laura, for the Terps, who are just coming off a win in the rivalry against Johns Hopkins, this is a team that's proven to be a top contender in the upcoming NCAA tournament. But before that Big Ten tournament game on Thursday, we need to go back and revisit how Maryland got to this point in the season. After losing in last year's national championship game against Notre Dame, the Terps have pieced together their best season since going undefeated in 2022. Maryland paved its way to a 10-2 regular season record after starting 2025 with 7 straight wins. Team 100 made its introduction with this opening day 5-goal win over then number 18 Richmond before unranked Loyola Richmond gave Maryland a scare in Baltimore. You see there, Matthew Keegan was the hero with this overtime game winner. That sparked something special for the Terps, who then rattled off their most impressive stretch of the season, with wins over then number 2 Syracuse, then number 5 Princeton, and who can forget goalkeeper Logan McNaney's performance in a national championship rematch win over then number 1 Notre Dame down in Atlanta. A couple more wins over Delaware and Virginia positioned Maryland as the top team in the country ahead of its Big Ten opener against Michigan. But the Wolverines had Maryland's number again. The Terps dropped a crushing 11-10 loss to Michigan in triple overtime, the Wolverines' 3rd consecutive win over Maryland. A win over Penn State couldn't be celebrated for too long before the Terps traveled to Piscataway and suffered this 8-6 loss at unranked Rutgers, Maryland's first loss to the Scarlet Knights since the two joined the Big Ten over a decade ago. As of recently, Maryland's picked up a pair of good wins at number 2 Ohio State, as Laura and I just mentioned, over Johns Hopkins in the 119th game of the rivalry. The Terps will look to build on that late-season success as the number 2 seed in this year's Big Ten tournament, matching up against 3-seeded Penn State on Thursday.
Here to walk us through the Terps season so far and the upcoming NCAA tournament is Jake Kauderer from the Diamondback and Nolan Rogalski from Testudo Times.
Jake, Nolan, thanks so much for both joining us here today.
My pleasure, guys.
Awesome. Jake, we'll start with you with the first question. We were just talking about it, the 2 losses for Maryland on a 10-2 season so far, both coming in the conference to then unranked Michigan, then unranked Rutgers. When Maryland fans are looking ahead for both tournaments and seeing those teams that were frankly subpar to Maryland in those games record-wise coming in, should Terps fans be concerned that those 2 losses for Maryland have come by playing down to those 2 opponents?
Yeah, Ryan, so the Michigan loss, very tough one here at home. That was a triple overtime loss. Michigan has owned Maryland the past few seasons. The Rutgers loss, also a really tough one. That was on the road in rainy conditions. Here's the good news for the Terps. Michigan is already out of the Big Ten tournament. Rutgers could play them in the final if Maryland wins. Rutgers is playing Ohio State. But look, here's the good news. Maryland's offense played poorly those 2 games. The last 2 weeks, Maryland's offense has picked it up. 11 goals against Johns Hopkins, 13 against Ohio State. They seem to have figured it out a bit, and that's what I'd say would be the biggest concern for both the Big Ten and the NCAA tournament is the offense. So I would say that's a positive for Terps fans to see that the last few weeks they've kind of picked it up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Michigan just came down to a few tough plays not going the Terps' way on offense. Rutgers, it was an entire game-wide problem. And looking ahead, I mean, these guys have started to convert their chances again, and we're looking really good.
And Nolan, in terms of if Maryland were to match up with that Rutgers team again, what would Maryland have to do differently than it did in that loss to Rutgers at Piscataway if they have to face off with Rutgers again?
I think it's really challenging goalkeeper Carden Stoller for Rutgers. He is a top 10 goalkeeper in the country. He was a guy that saved somewhere around 2/3 of the shots against Maryland, and he's somebody that is very mobile. He's a very movement-based goalkeeper, and that's something that the Terps could look to use to their advantage, try and get him a little bit more unsettled, because what Tillman said after the loss was he felt that the team was almost too lackadaisical in setting up for its shots. They were lazy. They didn't work for the best angle, the best shot, and as Jake said, that's something we've seen better in recent weeks, and that's something they'll have to keep doing if they have to play Rutgers again.
Yeah, and I would totally bounce off what Nolan said there. A lot of their looks in that game were not coming from around the cage, and that's an area where, whether at the X, whether in front of the cage, right to the side of it, they've thrived. And a lot of their shots were at inferior angles that game. Maybe they were working the sidelines too much. Part of it was sloppy passes amid rain, so I do think that, assuming there's better weather conditions, that will help as well.
Yeah, and with the Terps currently listed as a 2 seed in the Big Ten tournament, how far do you see this squad going this postseason?
Yeah, so I mean, they played Penn State, who they handled. Last year they played Penn State, did not go well. They gave up 19 goals. It was a very brutal performance by them. But they looked a lot better against Penn State in the regular season. And I would say Terps fans have every reason to be optimistic about this team. You guys mentioned it before. This is their best regular season since 2022, obviously that undefeated campaign. They've looked really good this season. There is reason to be optimistic that this team can not only win the Big Ten tournament, but make a run in the NCAA tournament.
Absolutely. I think what gets lost in this number 2 seed in the Big Ten tournament is that Maryland's only 2 losses have come in the Big Ten. They played, as Ryan said earlier, incredibly challenging schedule out of conference, came through that unscathed, and aside from those 2 slip-ups, those 2 weeks, have looked like one of the best teams in lacrosse.
Nolan, I'll start with the next question going to you first. I like what you bring up about how those 2 losses, again, came in the Big Ten. It's so easy as the calendar starts to turn into May that Maryland fans can maybe just lock in on that CQ Stadium bubble or think about only the Big Ten, but there's a lot of talent across collegiate lacrosse. So, Nolan, when you look at the collegiate lacrosse landscape overall, what teams stick out to you as being really hot teams that are playing the best lacrosse at the right time that come NCAA tournament time, Maryland fans wouldn't want the Terps to match up with?
Well, it really starts with the 2 Ivies, Cornell and Princeton. They are, along with the Terps, the 3 teams that are being seen by USILA as the best in college lacrosse, and it's for good reason. Princeton, from their goalkeeper through their defense, they're a very stout team, similar to the Terps. They don't like to give up a lot of goals. Cornell, it's the opposite, led by attacker C.J. Kirst, who is really a shoo-in for the Tewaaraton Award this year.
All-time leader now in goals in men's lax, Division I.
Yeah, there's no overstating how important he is to that team, and he's a guy that no defense is going to want to face going into the tournament.
Jake, any other wild card that would give Maryland a tough matchup?
Maybe a Big Ten team. Based on the struggles we've seen, we could see a team like Ohio State was red hot going into that Maryland game. Obviously had an off performance. Tillman, after a loss, always he's going to be prepared, but no doubt Terps fans should be excited. The Terps have beaten top 5 teams 5 times this season. Top 5 teams going into the matchup, so there's every reason to be excited about the NCAA tournament.
Awesome.
Nice. And out of all the Terps earning Big Ten honors, we have Will Schaller being named Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year, along with Logan McNaney and Eric Spanos named to first team All Big Ten. Who has impressed you the most this season, and what do you think is next for them in the future?
Yeah, I mean, you could really go with any of them. It's been really a team effort for this team. I will say Will Schaller has particularly impressed me, and the reason why is because Schaller really stepped into such an elevated role this season. Ajax Zapatello, the former number 1 last year, was always the guy, that lockdown corner kind of always taking away the other team's best player. He graduated, so it's been all on Schaller, and he's just been incredible taking away the other team's best attackers. Amazing footwork, great stick skills. Obviously, a lot of that defense comes down to the goalkeeper, Logan McNaney, but McNaney, I mean, he's done it before. Schaller really had the elevated role this season, and he's impressed me in that regard.
Yeah, I'll give you a little bit more left field of an answer. I'm going to the freshman, Jack Schultz, the midfielder from Jersey. He has really turned it on for the Terps this season. He's their top bench contributor, 7 goals, 5 assists, 12 points total. The only double-digit guy that's not starting for the Terps. And what he brings is this ability with both hands to get around his defender, put a shot on, cycle the offense. Tillman has had so much faith. He's even put Schultz up on the first line for some reps in some games, something that we'll look to see going forward. Schultz has just put point after point on the board in the Big Ten, and he's looking like a real threat going forward.
Well, whether it's a first year like Jack Schultz or what feels like a 10th year in Logan McNaney, it should be a very exciting postseason for Maryland men's lacrosse. Jake, Nolan, thank you guys so much for both coming on and previewing with us.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Awesome. Both of these guys will be busy covering the Terps' 2 tournament runs, but be sure to follow them so you can keep up while they do so. You can follow Jacob Kauderer at the Diamondback at dbknews.com and on X at jkauderer. And you can find Nolan Rogalski at testudotimes.com and on X at Nolan Rogalski.
Now don't go anywhere, because when we come back, we'll take a closer look at the upcoming NCAA tournament and some Big Ten honors.
And we'll name our of the year so far, as well as our top 5 plays. So stay with us.
Welcome back to the Left Bench in Focus. I'm Laura Shaughnessy here with Ryan Martin. And Ryan, the Big Ten tournament is in full swing after this past weekend's quarterfinals round.
Yeah, Laura, the Terps earned a 2 seed and a bye in a first round. It's really big for Maryland. And we're taking a look right now at the Big Ten tournament bracket overall. You see over here, Maryland will take on Penn State Thursday at 7:30 p.m. The Nittany Lions beat Johns Hopkins by just 1 point, 13-12 in a quarterfinal matchup against the Blue Jays. Ethan Long gets the scoring started for the Nittany Lions. Then it's a back and forth affair. PSU leads 5-4 after one, and it's more of the same in the second. Kyle Lehman scores with 7 seconds left in the first half to give Penn State a 1-goal lead going into halftime. Here's Matt Trainer with a coast-to-coast goal as Penn State holds off Hopkins in the final seconds. They claim the 1-goal win.
The Terps will take on Penn State for the second time this season. As you'll remember, the Terps took down Penn State 13-8 earlier this season. Then number 2 Maryland men's lacrosse was coming off of its first loss of the season, and the Nittany Lions came to town as the number 7 team in the county. Braden Erksa and Eric Spanos both notch hat tricks to give their team the 7-2 lead at half. Different story in the second half as the Nittany Lions outshoot Maryland by 8, including a couple of goals from Jack Amity and Matt Trainer in the third. But in the end, Penn State couldn't get through the brick wall that was Logan McNaney. 10 saves, including 6 in the second half, giving Maryland the 5-goal win.
Now let's take another look here at the bracket. Ohio State has the 1 seed and will face Rutgers. The Buckeyes beat the Scarlet Knights earlier this season, 13-11. On their senior day, this one was all Buckeyes to start. These goals in succession from Garrett Haas and Ryan Donnery put Ohio State up by 3 early. Then fast forward to the second half, where a 6-4 OSU halftime lead quickly turns to a tie game on this shot from Matthew Palato. But then the Buckeyes respond, scoring 4 of the next 5 goals, and they stay ahead on this goal by Gannon Matthews. Ohio State picks up the 13-11 win, beating the Scarlet Knights for a 3rd straight season.
Well, if it's anything like their last matchup against Penn State earlier this season, it could make for some good postseason play for the Terps.
That was a tremendous game, Laura. Would love to see if another game like that could come as we get into May.
The Terps are still fighting to host the first round of the NCAA tournament, and that might depend on how things shape up this weekend. Again, the Terps play Penn State in Ann Arbor on Thursday at 7:30.
Going from the bracket to awards, Laura, the Big Ten Conference released its annual postseason awards last week, and the Terps cleaned up nicely with the conference high 8 honorees. Let's start with the most impressive honor by a Terp this season. Defenseman Will Schaller winning Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. We've got more on Schaller coming up, but the junior made it 5 straight years in which Maryland's taken home this award. With Schaller, senior attacker Eric Spanos, and graduate goalkeeper Logan McNaney represented a conference most 3 All-Big Ten first-team selections. Graduate long-stick committee Jack McDonald wasn't too far behind Laura, being an All-Big Ten second-team selection. While Jack Schultz, Logan Carrier, and Peter Lake were all named to the All-Big Ten freshman team, senior Fogo Shea Keithler wrapped up the awards for Maryland by being named to the team's sportsmanship honoree.
And now it's time for our offensive player of the season. So far, we had to go with senior attackman Eric Spanos. Spanos was named Big Ten Offensive Player of the Week twice in February. He had a career-high tying 4 goals at Loyola, including 3 in the fourth quarter, to spark a comeback for the Terps. He also had 2 goals and 2 assists against Syracuse this regular season. Spanos is currently listed in the top 25 of finalists for the Tewaaraton Award alongside teammate Logan McNaney. Congrats to Eric on being named our Offensive Player of the Season.
Now let's flip sides of the field for a second, Laura, because one Terp, as we just mentioned, made it 5 straight years in which a Maryland player has taken home the award of Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. So he has to be our Defensive Player of the Year so far as well, and there's really no other option than to crown, as promised, defenseman Will Schaller. Schaller has been a force to be reckoned with during his junior season thus far. The Bel Air, Maryland native won Big Ten Defensive Player of the Week, a conference high, 3 times during the regular season. Schaller's anchored our Terps defense that's allowed just over 7.5 goals per game up to this point in the season. That's the second best mark in the country. Schaller himself has scooped up 23 ground balls and caused a team-high 19 turnovers. Congrats to Will Schaller on being crowned our Defensive Player of the Year so far.
And saving the best for last, our MVP of the year so far has to be the Terps' very own Logan McNaney. McNaney has had quite the season with the Terps. He was recently named first team All-Big Ten and tied for the all-time career saves record with 705 in the Big Ten. He leads the Big Ten in goals against average and ranks second in save percentage. McNaney was also named a top 25 Tewaaraton Award finalist. Congrats to Logan on being named our MVP of the year so far. And now, while it's time for our top 5 plays of the year, why don't you get it started for us, Ryan?
Yeah, last time on the InFocus edition, Laura. Let's get into it. At number 5, you just mentioned it, the graduate goalkeeper for Maryland. How about save 706 for Logan McNaney? That's the record breaker against the Buckeyes, getting it done there in the first quarter in Columbus. A quick early save, no problem in point-blank range for McNaney.
And coming in at number 4, we have Eric Spanos cutting through the Nittany Lions defense and slashing one in. Here we have it again with Spanos weaving through not 1, not 2, but 3 defenders to get one in for the Terps.
Spanos here, and then the defense again of Will Schaller. No McNaney, no problem as Schaller thwarts away the Virginia attack. Then he puts the body on line to go get that one. But how about it's the Cavaliers who pick it up, and then if Schaller had sweatpants on and a helmet, you'd think it was McNaney in net.
Yep, and second top play of the season, we had Matthew Keegan's overtime winner for the Terps against Loyola. A worthy celebration for Keegan there. Let's run it back. You see him cut around back and with no hesitation, sinks it in to call game for the Terps.
Was there any other play besides this one to be number 1? Logan McNaney's kick save with just seconds remaining against reigning national champion Notre Dame. McNaney using that left leg to thwart away the Fighting Irish attack. Maryland gets revenge after losing on Memorial Day weekend a year ago.
Yep, and that will do it for the Left Bench in Focus and my last show ever with TSC. Ryan, it's been a pleasure to work alongside you. The best is yet to come for you.
I appreciate it, Laura. It's been so much fun to share the desk with you. An honor and a privilege of mine. It's been great. Can't wait to see everything that you accomplish after Maryland and beyond.
You as well.
But now, with this one over, make sure to keep up with all of Terrapin Sports Central's coverage on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and X, and on our website at terrapinsportscentral.com. We'll see you next time.